I moved here in 1980. Within being here for a couple of weeks, I met Freddie Fletcher. He said, "Come over," and I didn't realize what was going on. I just showed up, and it was Freddie and Guy and the bass player and myself, and we just played some. And after playing for like an hour or so, Guy said, "Can we pick you up tomorrow? We're going to go to North Carolina." And I said, "Yeah." It's like, so it was that fast. I was in the band, and immediately, Guy had some kind of strange guitar that he was playing, and he wanted to play electric guitar. It's like he knew he wanted to project more than just, he's trying to be in a band with bass and drums, and Guy had never been a guy to be in a band with bass and drums. He didn't know anything about how that worked. So I got my Strat, the one that's over there. I had this old '63 Strat. So Guy would put real heavy strings on it and play it just like he's playing acoustic guitar. And that Strat through one of those acoustic amplifiers, that had the sliders on it for EQ on the front of it. He would play. I mean, it kind of sounded like a real amped up acoustic guitar. I mean, his playing style was just the same way. He had thumb pick, and he played it like he would be playing an acoustic. And at that time, I was playing that red Telly, and I had palm pedals on it. And I'd been coming off playing 6 nights a week in bars in Texas for a couple of years. So I'm wanking around on these palm pedals, and the guy was fascinated by palm pedals because it can have a fake steel guitar for part of the solo, and that was it. We just started traveling around, and it was great because Freddie Fletcher is one of the greatest characters ever of all time. He immediately named me Cowboy because I had a summer straw on and a big old belt buckle here, and a country and western dress code from Texas honky tonks. And so, okay, Cowboy. But the tragic thing is the guy that played bass was from Mount St. Helens, and so Freddie nicknamed him Helen. We had a few years there, some great fun, and Guy really enjoyed playing electric guitar, and it was a unique thing because it was unlike anything else because he translated his acoustic guitar playing style to playing it on a Strat, and he made it work. And I'm just floating around playing palm pedal licks and trying to stay out of the way of the words because I knew about Guy's songs to an extent before I got the gig, but as soon as we started playing the songs, I realized what it was, and I was so scared of playing some goofy guitar lick that was going to distract someone from hearing those words. There's a certain skill set to staying out of the way of Guy Clark lyrics. Got to be careful. You know, and but I loved it every minute of it. It's like, well, they're just bars. Mostly. I mean, but we did do an Austin city limits. And when we'd go to Austin, the gigs were a bit better, and we'd go through the South, Atlanta, and then over to the Carolinas. And a really great story is we got stranded in the Carolinas because we had some dates fall through and we couldn't get back. We could come home, sleep in our own bed for a night, and get up and drive back to where we were. So we just got holed up in a motel somewhere, and Freddie Joe and I would walk around the town and look around and stuff. Guy never got out of the motel room. He just holed up in there. So I started hanging out with him in there and just talking. And one night we were up late. It was like 3 in the morning, and we're drinking tequila and carrying on. And And I started looking through this book of guys. That it's his book of his lyrics. And I don't know if you've ever seen example of guys printing style, but it's perfect. It's like just the script, the way it's very artful, the way he just wrote out the words perfectly. And I'm looking at this book, and it's like one, Let 'Em Roll and Texas Cooking and Texas 1947. Just all the songs, they're there. And you were drunk. And I just look at him and I said, do you realize how good this is? Do you realize what this is, how great this is? And he said, yeah. And there was no ego in it. It's like, he said, you can't do it and not know how good it is. And it was like, you think of Rembrandt looking at a painting that he had done and said, yeah, I think I got that right. Or what, it's like he could objectively look at it and say, well, yeah, it's really good work,
Was he appreciated around town in this period?
Oh, I don't know. It's, right about the time I started working with him, he had a hit with Ricky Skaggs on Heartbroke, and it was like it's a hit single, and guy didn't have a lot of hit singles. And at that time, I was writing at Tree Publishing a little bit. Well, actually, I was still with Jim Ed Norman's publishing company, and the songs that I was getting recorded were by Mickey Gilley and Johnny Lee and those kind of people, and they weren't Guy Clark level of songs, but they were commercial, country radio, please let me on the radio kind of songs, and I was thrilled to death to have songs on the charts and stuff. But we could be going down the road and one of my songs would come on the radio and I wouldn't even act like I knew what it was. It's like I was so in awe of his art, and he would, he would say that's what it was. He was all about being an artist, and but he was sweet to me. I mean, he knew I was trying to raise a family from writing songs, and this is what you got to do if you're going to be a professional songwriter. You can't really indulge yourself in the kind of artistry that he, later on, I could do that a little bit with a little bit of success later on, and when I had one of those kind of songs, and I get together with Guy to write, he'd say, well, what do you got? And I could play him a song I was proud of, and he would be generous with letting me know that I was okay or whatever.
Did you ever get to play one of his guitars that he made?
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
Tell people what.
Oh, they're fantastic. Well, they're mostly. He started making guitars from a kid. I regret that he gave me the CD or the DVD to learn how to make a guitar, and he offered to make a guitar with me, but I'm not good at woodworking, and I was so stupid to not just go and do it. A few people did do it, but they were great classical style guitars, but they were steel strings, and he had some that were gut strings too, but a few of them were exceptional instruments, and he had his own headstock way, the way his headstock looked, and he'd sign them inside of it and get a little blood and put a Guy Clark thumbprint.
Do we know what happened to those guitars?
Well, I know he gave Lyle one. I think he gave one to Rodney. Verlin may have one. I don't know where they all wound up.
Do you remember the last time you saw him?
Yes, tragically. He was in the assisted living kind of hospital place
hospice.
It wasn't actually. They weren't calling it hospice but he was in treatment over there, and it's the same place that my mother-in-law had been, and it's just you go over there and went over there a few times with Sean, and Sean and I wrote a song for a guy, and it was called this. There's this guy. There's this guy, and we had the song, and we were happy with it, and we wanted to show it to him, and so we took it over there and we played it for him, and he looked at me and says, "Well, isn't that cute?" And it's like, we're like, "Oh, cute." Oh, if Guy said something was cute, well, that was the worst. But anyway, Sean said he played it for him at another time when it was just him and Guy, and Guy said that's really good, and thanked him for it and stuff. But the last time I saw him, he was all the nurses had just been in. He had they cleaned him up, and he trimmed his beard, and he was sitting up, and it's like we knew it was goodbye, but we didn't really say it, and those kind of things. There weren't any words. To what are you gonna do? You just. But there was a lot of activity over at that place, hospital place. Where I got there one time, Steve Earle showed up at the same time, and we got to hang out there together. And he had Sam Bush in there, and John Randall, and some other guys in there, and everybody go in there and play music and enjoy it. And John and I wrote a song with Guy that was title of one of his records called "Some Days You Write the Song, Some Days the Song Writes You," and John got a tattoo of it on his arm. There's a million Guy stories as well. He lived at the lake, and he had this huge table at his place at the lake, and everybody carved their name into the table, and I took Delbert out there to hang out one time with him and carry on, and then years later, I took Delbert back over to his workshop, and we wrote a song with him for Delbert to sing called "Starting a Rumor." I'm starting a rumor about being you. Oh man, I don't know. Those days at the lake, he would. I just go hang out with him, and we rehearse. It's the most torturous thing in the world to think you're going to have to rehearse. But he wanted to do it enough so that I could sing some harmony with him. This is after the band that was electric, and it was just me playing acoustic along with him. It was just the two of us. And then he would work on my guitars sometimes. One time he called and said, "Bring your Martin. I'm going to adjust your bridge on." I had a D41 at the time. He said, "I'll fix the bridge on your guitar. I got something I want you to hear while we're doing it." And so he started digging into my bridge, and he said, "Check this out." And he put on a cassette, and it was Lyle Lovett's cassette that he had come to town with. And I said, "Wow, that guy's really good. He sings kind of like Jesse Winchester or something. It's like never heard him before." And within a couple of weeks, Guy had given that tape to Merlin Littlefield, who was the guy that worked at ASCAP, and I think Merlin got it to Tony Brown, and it was only a month later, Lyle had a record deal. And I'm so proud of Lyle because he always credits Guy for getting his career started. He always tells people about it. Man, I just got back this last weekend. I played at a festival in Rockport, which is Guy's hometown, there on the coast. And when I first started working with Guy, the South Coast of Texas was the record that he made previous to. There's a picture there of us making the Better Days record. But being down there in Rockport last weekend, there's all the boats there, and the place where the guy had his picture taken for the album cover of the South Coast of Texas record is there. And Guy's sister shows up, and she looks. I mean, you see the family resemblance immediately. And so for my set, the solo set, I played 5 or 6 songs that Guy and I had written together. A couple of them that no one's ever heard, and then at the end of the night, Sean and Vernon Thompson do their Guy tribute. Which, if you hadn't seen that, you got to find a way to. It's the most entertaining thing you can possibly see. I mean, for a songwriter, it's just outrageous. Those guys are rock stars doing Guy songs. It's incredible. But I found this song that in the '80s through the first half of the '90s, I didn't smoke marijuana at all because I had 4 little boys to raise, and I was busy. I'd get up every day and go to work. I was writing at Tree Publishing, and I had to focus on trying to get on records, get hits, and there wasn't any time to get high, you know. And so all this time went by, and I got together with Guy, and so he'd start, you know, drinking whiskey and smoking dope at 10:30 in the morning. And so about the third time I got together with him and didn't smoke or drink, he said, "Gary, you're gonna smoke some dope with me today," you know. And he says, "How many joints we smoked going down the road, you know, a million years ago? Come on now, take a hit off this thing." So finally, I said, "Okay," and so took a couple of hits off this thing, and that day we wrote a song that I'm sure no song has ever been written like the song we wrote that day. It's a baseball gospel song called "Walk Me, Lord, Walk Me. Just let me get on base. Devil's throwing curveballs. He's cutting them across the plate. I don't want to go down swinging. Just keep me in the game. Walk me, Lord, walk me. I'll come stealing home someday." So I got to play that this last weekend at Rockport. It was a really fun thing. And then there's this other song that is hilarious because it's about Billy Sanders, the guy that played guitar with Delbert forever. And for a while, Billy and I were both in Delbert's band at the same time. He played a 335, and I don't know if you ever saw Delbert in those days. He bought a hat for Billy that he said, if I buy you that Hoss Cartwright hat, I'll buy it for you if you'll wear it. And so Billy wore it. So all this time goes by, and we're playing at the Lone Star in New York, and Billy shows up. He didn't go there with us. He just magically appears out of nowhere, and he's there, and he jumps up and plays with us, you know, for a few songs, and I'd give him my guitar, and he'd play for a while, and I'd go sit down and watch him and say, "Hey, Billy," and then he'd go, and I'd go and get my guitar back and play a few songs, and then he'd be back on stage and wanted the guitar back, give him the guitar back, and that happened like 3 or 4 times. I realized he was having me play so he could go and do some more blow and then get back on stage and play again. And so at the end of the night, he's drinking Long Island teas, and we see him get in a cab with a couple of old gals. And so I start telling Guy the story. And he said, "We got to write that, man. The last bite of the Big Apple," you know. And we had lines in there about you know, Billy going back to Fort Worth to sell used cars and stuff. It was a hilarious thing. But Guy sings the demo, and it's really funny. And yeah, it's an undiscovered guy, Jim. Yeah.
Hopefully that'll surface one day.
Yeah. Man, I think they're trying to put out some of Guy's stuff that nobody's ever heard before. And That's definitely one that hadn't been heard before. I mean, it's a real cheesy demo with a drum machine and me playing all the instruments and Guy singing, and it's not in the character of a great Guy Clark record. It's Guy singing this silly song, but it's great. His vocals perfect. It's really really cool.